Chapter 32. Untimely Death. Pump, 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 pump. Push, 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 push. Press, 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 press. Joe the paramedics, two-handed, palm against back of his hand, palm on her breastplate, pumped Sheila's heart, pushing blood through her arteries and veins. He inhaled, pinched her nose, tilted her head back, and exhaled into her lungs. The breath of life, the pump of salvation. Pump, 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 pump. Repeat. Sheila bolted upright, startling the paramedic. Take it easy, miss. Where am I? In an ambulance. Where's Bluey? Miss, please lie back down. We'll be at the hospital in a minute. Your husband will meet us there. Sheila moaned and closed her eyes. Her breastplate and ribs battered by the strength of the powerful paramedic. When Paul arrived at the hospital parking lot, he saw the ambulance with the paramedics writing up the report. How is she? She's pretty good, answered Joe. She was able to walk into the emergency room on her own feet with us helping her. Oh, that's good news. Thank you. There's one more thing I should tell you. What's that? Her heart stopped on the way here, so we gave her a little CPR. She bounced right back. She's in good shape. Frankly, I've never seen anyone recover so quickly. You should go in and check on her. Thank you, said Paul, who entered the emergency room reception and was escorted to a draped area where the medical team hovered over Sheila. What happened? Asked the doctor on duty. When I came inside from working outside, she complained of being tired. She moaned, "It hurts, my body hurts." So I brought her water and a Tylenol. I took a phone call in the other room, and when I went back to check on her, her eyes were closed and she was foaming at the mouth. She was unresponsive. I called 911, and here we are. Her heart stopped 15 minutes in the ambulance. 15 minutes? Asked Paul. The paramedic made it seem like a few seconds. He performed full-blown CPR on her. Looks like her ribs are broken. We'll need to x-ray to confirm. The nurse on duty added, "They often break the breastplate when doing CPR," and Paul thought, great, she survived a heart attack and now has a broken breastplate and cracked ribs. A pulmonologist on duty entered the draped stall. An intern asked for the second time, "Should we intubate her?" "Let's examine her first," said Dr. Trussman. He listened carefully to her heart and breathing and asked Paul what happened. He repeated his story. "She has pneumonia," said the doctor. "Pneumonia? How can that be? She was working outside all day. Could you check for that virus caused by rodent droppings? She cleaned the shed last week. Maybe she's infected with that." "She has pneumonia," the doctor insisted. "We need to increase the fluids in her body and raise her blood pressure, lower her blood sugar, and get her on antibiotics to combat the pneumonia." "Is she diabetic?" "No. She is now." "How is she?" "Considering everything she's been through, good. She's awake. Go talk with her." Paul walked to the gurney where Sheila lay and took her hand. "Hey, it's me," he whispered. "She looks so peaceful. Can you hear me?" She nodded. "Can you speak?" She nodded. "Can you tell me where you are?" With eyes closed, her lips parted. "Hospital." She swallowed the nest. "Where's Bluey?" "He's fine. He's at home." "You need to go home before something happens." "I'll go back when you're out of the emergency room." "I'm fine. Bluey's in danger." He squeezed her hand. "I didn't get to say goodbye." "Goodbye," she said. "The doctor says you're going to be fine." "What happened?" "You passed out at home. I called 911. Paramedics arrived. While they were driving you to the hospital, your heart stopped." "Really? For 15 minutes? Gosh. What do you remember?" I saw something," she said. "What did you see?" "Light." "Were you in heaven?" "I don't know. I saw something. I'm not sure. You need to be careful." "Of what?" "You died and went to heaven and came back. Perhaps there's a reason." "Did you get a message?" I can't tell you. She had seen something she couldn't articulate or didn't want to share, at least not yet. So he dropped it. She was gaining strength by the minute, and the medical team transferred to intensive care, accompanied by Paul. She became more and more anxious about Bluey and urged Paul to go home to look after him and bring wine for the hospital staff. In the morning, neighbors who saw the ambulance came over to inquire what happened and offered to watch Bluey so Paul could be with Sheila at the hospital. Paul returned with 2 cases of wine. The nurse on duty at the emergency room thanked him. We see the patients go in, but rarely how they turn out. I'm glad to hear she's doing well. Your wife was in pretty bad shape. You're lucky. He took the elevator to the ICU and checked in with the nursing station, leaving a case of wine for the staff. She is a living miracle, said the head nurse. How's her blood pressure? Paul asked. It's still a little low. Would you mind being quiet? Sheila said. I'm glad to see her a little punchy, Paul told the nurse. If I spend time with her, I'm sure her blood pressure will increase. Did you call Kate and Alex? Sheila asked. I talked with Alex. Kate's mountain climbing in New Hampshire. I thought we could call her together. I want to talk with her. Paul dialed her number. Kate, sweetie, is that you? Hi, Mama. How are you? We just finished climbing Mount Washington. It's beautiful. Please call me when you get back. Love you. Tears swelled her eyes. Bye, Mom. Paul sat quietly by her bedside, and after a few minutes, covered her hand with his. Just then, the machine monitoring her heart sounded a piercing alarm, and the nursing staff rushed in. The head nurse called the doctor to alert him to the emergency. This time, Paul would be able to watch the team as the team worked to save her. And he began wondering, was she spared last night just so he could say goodbye today? What's wrong with me? Sheila asked. Your heartbeat is irregular. Am I going to heaven again? The doctor will be here in a minute. Hang on. Paul, Sheila said, I want you to pay back my money to Kate and Alex. I will, I promise. Dr. Trussman arrived, turned off the alarm, and examined her. Her physical condition not indicative of cardiac arrest. You're going to be all right, he assured her. What's wrong? She asked. I don't know yet. He wasn't sure of the cause, then had a suspicion. He pulled a thin metal catheter inserted into her chest, and the rhythm returned to normal. It was tickling her heart muscle, which caused the irregular beat. Saved again, this time with smiles and laughs, as the sun started its descent. Just in time for Friday services, Paul said to the doctor. I'm glad this happened now and not an hour later. Are you Jewish? Didn't Elie Wiesel say everyone is a Jew? Please accept this bottle as a gift. The young lady here grew the grapes. Thank you, but I won't be able to drink it if it's not kosher. The vines were blessed by the bishop. Perhaps one of your staff would enjoy it. I'll bring it to the office. I was afraid her heart started skipping beats when I held her hand. You're a good husband, so stay with her, said the doctor. I don't think so, Sheila said from her bed. Shabbat shalom, said Paul. Good Shabbos, replied the doctor. As dusk faded into evening and the night shift took over, Sheila's thoughts turned to her boy. She asked Paul, please go home and take care of Bluey. When Carrie Ann heard the news, she offered to help and called Paul. He asked if she could take Bluey for a walk. Where's his leash? He doesn't need a leash. He won't run away from you, said Paul. But Carrie Ann had a bit more respect for rules. Besides, she didn't know if she could control Bluey. As Paul sat with Sheila in the hospital room, she had been stepped down to a regular shared room. They looked at a photo Carrie Ann texted of a large white snake with unusual markings. Good thing I had the leash, she wrote. Look what we found on the road. Without the leash, Blue would have confronted the snake nose to nose. I've never seen one like that before, said Paul. Let's send the photo to Snake Man for identification. They did, and he reported it was a rare snake with venom more poisonous than typical rattlers. an agent of death sent by the Grim Reaper to get Bluey. A week later, after dozens of tests found nothing wrong with her heart, Sheila was discharged from the hospital, and Paul drove her home. The first thing she did after hugging her dog was pick up the garden hose. "Why didn't you water my Pinot Noir vines while I was gone? They're dying," she complained. "I was in the hospital taking care of you." "I'll water them. Please go inside and rest." "I need to water them now," she insisted, and watered the vines she purchased and planted herself that spring in front of the house. Then she watered the persimmon trees and the raised garden built, but eventually that would stop, as she didn't have the energy to care for a few tomato plants when she had over 2,000 grape plants. She toiled outside every day, Bluey keeping an eye on her from the shade, and she grew stronger and reached the point where she could work outside all day while Paul was at the office. On weekends, he, dubbing himself a weekend warrior, tired after a couple of hours outside, while she kept going. She gained strength from the vines with whom she talked, and by August, traditionally a hot month when the heat wave arrived, she was up early in the morning and outside into the afternoon. Paul pleaded with her to come inside and rest, but she had grown stronger than he and kept working. And, except when her blood pressure was high, she worked outside more than him, he stopping to take breaks to go inside and drink water with Bluey. Paul looked at Sheila, talking to the vines, and thought, "There's the woman I married. There must have been a reason. What was it? I suppose she was kind until we had a child, and the love we had for each other went to Kate and Alex." And Paul imagined the Lord in heaven looking down at his child toiling in the vineyard in the afternoon heat after returning from her deathbed. "She's a child of God. She's the righteous one, not me." At that moment, something changed, a change of heart. And all the anger and resentment he felt all those years turned to respect, even admiration. He wasn't one to say, "I love you," to her, not since conceiving their last child, saving that expression for use in imaginary discourses with his muses. But a few years later, on a hot summer afternoon, he would spend 2 hours netting those same Pinot Noir vines she watered the minute she returned from the hospital, the vines having grown to the point of producing well-formed clusters, inviting birds and squirrels to sample the berries, she too exhausted in the heat of a summer afternoon to protect the ripening fruit. Love is netting your spouse's vines without being asked.